Good evening. It is now 6:30, and I will call the Tuesday, May 29th, 2018 Planning Commission meeting to order. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening. Our first item on this evening's agenda is approval of the agenda. Are there any changes from staff or the commission on tonight's agenda?
None from staff.
No changes. I would stand for a motion.
Moved.
Seconded, Chair.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and the motion carries. Our second item on this evening's agenda is approval of the minutes from the May 14th, 2018 Planning Commission meeting. Are there any changes from staff or the commission on those minutes?
None from staff.
No
None.
changes. Stand for a motion.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second.
And a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and the motion carries. Our third item on this evening's agenda is a public hearing of the City of Burnsville for a comprehensive plan amendment from park to business for PID numbers. I won't bore everyone with the numbers there. It's in our background for former archery site, and presenting this evening is Ms. Dean.
Good evening, Chair, members of the Commission. As Chairman Workman mentioned, this is a proposed change on behalf of Dodge of Burnsville. The city is pursuing this guide plan change. So in 2017, the city authorized purchase of a park property that was in our ownership, formerly known as Archery Site, to the Adamich family, or Dodge of Burnsville as they're known. As part of that, the site was guided park in our 2030 plan, and to be appropriately used in the future by a business such as Dodge, a guide plan change is necessary. Knowing that change was in the works, staff had included the change from park to business within our 2040 comprehensive plan update. The issue with that is it will not be available for approval until at least 2018 or 2019. So to move things along and to help facilitate development on the site, staff's pursuing the proposed change. So the audience and yourself are a little more familiar with the site. It's east of 35E, north of Cliff Road. Dodge of Burnsville currently owns property just to the west of the highlighted site. The city owns the property to the east. This area identified as site is the area that was purchased by the Adamich family, or Dodge of Burnsville. Northern Tool is just to the south in this location. The change itself, it's seen as a minor change to the Metropolitan Council. There's not a regional impact to the overall region or even to the city. Any impact to traffic, sewer, and water is none to minimal, not a significant impact. Overall change is just over almost under 2.5 acres, 2.42 acres in size. This just gives you an overview also of the area proposed to be guided from park to business. You will see at a future date on June 25th, assuming that things stay on track, you'll see a a zoning change and preliminary and final plat for the area identified as the site here in green. With that, staff does recommend approval of the changes as presented. Certainly, if there's any questions or if you need more clarification, I'm more than happy to answer those.
Thank you, Ms. Dean. Commissioners, any questions for staff on this application? Commissioner Singh.
Just for the benefit of our viewing and listening audience, staff is saying that there's no major impact. This change has no major impact on the plan.
Correct. There's a future archery site that will be relocated elsewhere, and because of the percentage of park compared to our overall park system, it's very minor, and staff doesn't see it as a change to or big impact to the city of Burnsville or to the regional system.
Mr. Chair, if I may continue.
Absolutely.
What about Northern Tools and the other neighbors? Any feedback from them?
This is a public hearing, so notices were provided to the ownership. They will be provided in the future, assuming that this moves forward as a preliminary and final plat, that would be before you in June. I have not heard anything from the adjacent neighbors.
Thank you, Mr. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Singh. Any other questions? Mr. Bradrick?
The, not necessarily tied to this application, but the property where the archery range is being moved to, is that zoned park already? Or does it have to go from business to park?
So that location, it's south of Highway 13. It's currently guided park and zoned park. So no changes would be necessary for that particular site.
So net, we're losing some park space, we're not taking business to, it's already, the property was already owned by the city. We're just moving the archery range to that property.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. And just to clarify, Dodge, the car dealership is facilitating the new archery range as part of this agreement. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right, if there's no other questions for staff, I will open the public hearing, and if anybody would like to speak to this item, now is your time. And seeing nobody, I will close the public hearing and turn it back over to the commission for any further discussion or a motion on this item.
Chair, I think this is an excellent opportunity. We're getting a new archery range. We're helping a business in the community better utilize a piece of property. So, and I would be in support of this application.
May I go ahead with the motion, Mr. Chair?
The floor is yours, Commissioner Singh.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Bradrick, it's my honor and privilege to move that the Planning Commission recommend to the City Council approval of the comprehensive plan change as presented.
Second?
A motion and a second. All of those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And the motion carries. And Ms. Dean, can you tell me again when that is coming back with the sketch plans and such?
June 25th.
June 25th, we'll look at the details. Our next item on this evening's agenda is a public hearing for the City of Burnsville for amendments to City Code Title 10, Chapter 30, signs related to wall graphics and murals, and Ms. Dean is presenting on that item as well.
Good evening again. So you may remember this was before you just about a year ago. So how this topic initially started was back in May of 2017. The Visitors and Convention Bureau approached the City Council with the idea to do a mural to celebrate their 30th anniversary. Council at this particular work session was on board, gave consensus to move forward with proposed ordinance change, which was directed to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission heard that in June of 2017 and had some concerns about how many applications we might receive, maintenance, and wanted to kind of test the waters to see how many applications we may receive within a year time period. So Planning Commission directed staff to create a one-year interim ordinance. That recommendation carried forward to the City Council, which the City Council approved the one-year interim ordinance. So we're before you today to determine if you want to continue with the ordinance, to make it a two-year interim ordinance, or to make it a permanent ordinance. So it would essentially be codified, and of course, as the code is, at any time in the future, it could be modified at the direction of council at the request of a potential applicant, but essentially it would be more of a permanent ordinance. I do have the sample of the draft ordinance if you want to look at the details again. Otherwise, we do have the considerations before you as Planning Commission. One, to approve the ordinance as a two-year interim ordinance, or to make it permanent. Staff does recommend the two-year ordinance. However, it's certainly up to you how you wish to proceed with any type of recommendation to council. I'm certainly open to answer any questions that you might have.
Great, thank you. Commissioners, questions for Ms. Dean on this item? No questions? Commissioner Bradrick?
Ms. Dean, you had mentioned a 1 year, 2 year. Can you give me some guidance why staff is supporting a 2 year versus permanent versus 1 year? Help us with where you landed there.
So 2 years, we have not received any applications for murals. We do know that the Visitors and Convention Bureau does at some point want to pursue the mural idea. They're working on funding for that. It could take 1 year, is my understanding, for that to occur. So this would be in place to help facilitate that. However, again, if Planning Commission feels that you're comfortable with making this a permanent ordinance, that's okay too. I would say staff's not necessarily strong either way, but because the 1 year ordinance was brought up by the Planning Commission, we wanted to be respectful of that request.
Okay, thank you.
I don't personally see an issue with just codifying it and making it an ordinance at this point. We have seen no applications. I mean, I suppose any issues that might arise would come out of an application. But you've done your due diligence and spoken to that. If there was an issue, that council could raise it and send it back, and we could head it that way. My 2 cents on that, this is a public hearing, so unless there's other questions or comments, I just assume open the public hearing and then we can come back to more discussion if there is any. With that, I will open the public hearing on this item, and if anybody would like to speak to it, now is your time. And seeing nobody, I will close the public hearing. Commissioners, I would look for any feedback on that, codifying it into a permanent ordinance. That would be my 2 cents on it, but I will participate in the process if anybody feels strongly about 2 years or otherwise. Commissioner Singh?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Going through the background information and listening to Ms. Dean, there was no application so far. I think if we codify it and make it a permanent ordinance, I wonder about that. I would support the staff's recommendation of a 2 year.
Okay. Commissioner Bradrick, it's on you to bust the tie.
Chair, thank you. I think we did put we did work on this a little bit, if I remember correctly. We talked about maintenance, and we talked about, we've got limitations as to where it can go, and so I do think that we did put some work into that, and so at this point, I would be in support of just having it be a permanent change to the ordinance.
I'll go either way, Mr. Chair. I'm not too strong on the 2 year either. I mean, we have not had any applications, so who knows? The Visitors and Convention Bureau has interest in putting up something, so might be the only one. City of Burnsville does not have much space for murals, so. And I don't know how many other people are interested, if you're high school or elementary school or so. But I'll go either way.
Okay.
I'll wait to see what Commissioner Bradrick moved in motion.
Can I ask staff, because the background, our recommendation is approval of the ordinance as a 2 year, so our recommendation, if we were to go that direction, the Planning Commission recommend the City Council approval of the ordinance as a permanent ordinance change, or how would that need to be worded?
That would be fine as a motion. You could direct staff to remove the reference to 2 years.
Okay. That's what I think I'd like to. Chair, I'd like to make a motion.
The floor is yours.
I would like to recommend, the Planning Commission recommend the City Council approval of the ordinance as a 2 year interim ordinance as presented, with staff removing the 2 year time limit.
We have a motion, and
Mr. Chair, can I just wordsmith? You're recommending that the Planning Commission is recommending the City Council to be a permanent ordinance. Therefore, then you don't have to put the 2 year in. Just, we have a choice of 2 year, a 1 year, or permanent. We are recommending permanent.
I think that would be fine.
Okay.
I beg to second that, Mr. Chair.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All of those in favor? Opposed, and the motion carries.
Thank you.
That brings us to our last item on this evening's agenda, which is updates. Are there any updates from the commission while we wait for Ms. Dean to get back to her seat? Any updates? No updates from the commission? Hi.
The next planning commission meeting is June 11th. It's currently a pretty full agenda. I'll go ahead and pass that along to you. I have no other updates.
Seeing no other updates, I would I would just say that our next planning commission meeting is Monday, June 11th at 6:30. With that, no other updates, I would stand for a motion for adjournment.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second?
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and the motion carries. Thank you for joining us this evening, and have a great rest of your night.